Hey there, I am live and we are about to get going. Welcome to Getting Real. I'm your host, Monick Halm, and on this show, we talk about authentic, real, raw. We talk about what's real with real estate investing. And we're going to talk about topics on this show that you often don't hear about in other places. And today's topic is about how you can invest from the feminine perspective. Because guess what? Women are not just smaller, less hairy men. We are chromosomally different. Our brains are literally wired differently from men. And these differences affect how we show up to money and investing. So today we're going to talk about what those differences are and how, as women, we can tap into a feminine paradigm as opposed to the masculine paradigm that most of us are taught to operate in, and how you can do that. And this feminine paradigm I call the goddess secret sauce, because when you implement these four features of the goddess secret sauce into your investing and life, it is transformative, not just for your financial picture, but for your relationships, for the amount of joy and happiness you experience in every area of your life. So hopefully you're ready for that. We're going to talk about that today. And so first, let's talk about some of the differences between men and women when it comes to money and investing. Some of these differences, one of the big differences is that for men, investing and it's money, it feels like a game or a challenge. For women, it feels like a threat. It can bring up a lot of fear. So dealing with that fear is really important. Now, when we have this fear, it's two things happen. One, it can keep a lot of women from getting into the game at all. A lot of women will just pawn the financial aspects of their lives onto spouses, onto others. They're afraid to deal with it. So that will often happen. But when women do get into the game, they do certain things that actually make them more successful as investors. So one of the things is we as women are more likely to seek help, in part because we're not as sure and confident. We seek expert guidance, which serves us. The other thing that we do is we are much slower to take action. So we're not as trigger happy as men. So we're going to take much more measured, slow, deliberate action, which serves us better. So in general, women investors tend to have 20-30% better results than men if they get in the game. And the problem is this fear keeps a lot of women from getting in the game at all. So one of the things that I do a lot of in my program, in the Millionaire Real Estate Investor Classes program, is deal with this fear so that we can move forward confidently. That is an issue with women. Another thing is, and I'll talk about more of these differences as we get into the goddess secret sauce, but because of these differences that will affect how we learn, how we deal with stress, how we deal with relationships. All of those things are differences that we want to take into account, and they're part of the goddess secret sauce that will help us to have better results. Before I get into the goddess secret sauce, I'll just share one last main difference in terms of how women deal with stress. So we have been taught that the stress response is fight, flight, freeze. right? Fight, flight, freeze. And there was a group of female scientists at UCLA who noticed something when things got really stressful around their lab. The male scientists would go lock themselves up in their offices. They would flight. The female scientists would gather in the kitchen and start to cook together and talk, and they would gather. So they did a test, a study on like women and men and the stress response. So what they discovered is the fight, flight, freeze is the way men dealt with stress, but women tend and befriend. We tend and befriend. We have a different stress response. We take care of the people around us, often our kids, or we take care of others, and we surround ourselves in community. So those are just some of the differences that between women and men. We are not the same, but our educational system and a lot of our puritanical work ethic that we're taught, especially in the US, really goes to this more masculine way of being that does not serve women. There is an epidemic amongst women, an epidemic of depression and rage and addiction and needing to have, shopping therapy or overeating or drinking because we're functioning in the world in a way that is antithetical to our nature, in a way that doesn't serve who and what we are. So today I want to share 4 pieces of this goddess secret sauce, 4 pieces of operating in the feminine that will help you have better results as an investor and better results in life, because these things are things that cut across everything. It's our way of being. And it's the first piece of what I teach. So I have this wealthy formula that I teach, which is how women, each letter stands for a way to invest in real estate successfully as women. And the W stands for womanly. So how do we do this from a woman in a womanly way? I'll just share the rest just so you know. The E is for education, because we do need to be educated. What you don't know can hurt you, especially when you're dealing with real estate, which is probably the costliest things you're going to ever purchase in your life. The A stands for assets, and that has to do with asset classes, asset strategies, and also asset protection. The L stands for location, which is, buying in the right market, in the right place. They say, what are the top 3 rules of real estate? 1, location, 2, location, 3, location. Location really matters. So how do you find the right money-making location? T has to do with team. Real estate investing is a team sport. So who do you need on your team? H is how you pay. A lot of us, I know I did, believe that when you're buying real estate, you're limited to your own capital and credit. That's not true. There are a bunch of other ways that you can fund and finance real estate. So how you pay, and then lastly, why? Because it stands for you. Because real estate investing is not one size fits all. So how do you create a plan that works for who you are, how you want to play in this realm, and takes the best use of the resources that you have? So that's the wealthy formula, right? WEALTHY. Today we're going to focus on the W part of that, the womanly part. And it really does, like I say, it affects all the parts of your life. So it's really important that as women, where we learn to do this. So the first part of the goddess secret sauce is pleasure. It's pleasure. So we're often taught that growing up, it's like a no pain, no gain. We got to man up. We got to muscle through. Right? This like was this hard charging, going at it. That's a masculine way, right? Muscling through. For women, that completely fries us. We don't need to muscle through. We need to pleasure through. Pleasure is the secret, is a huge part of the secret sauce for women. Pleasure is, and I learned this through one of my teachers, mentors for a long time. I first started studying her work in 2004. Her name is Regina Thomas-Schauer, so 20 years, oh my gosh. And then worked and coached with her personally quite a few times. And she teaches women how to tap into the pleasure, the power of pleasure to have their way with the world. This is how she says it. And when I started to tap into this pleasure principle, it really did transform every part of my life. So we are taught, right? At least I was taught that I had to work really hard, right? And that, that I was in this struggle, right? No pain, no gain. When we do a pleasure-based approach, instead, it allows in this flow and grace and ease. So how that works is there are different ways that you can put in pleasure instead. So when I find that I'm getting stuck, I know I need to do one of two things. One is I need to stop and take a pleasure break. So stop if I'm banging my head against the wall. I want to, if a pleasure break can be, I'm going to put on my favorite music and start to dance. Do a dance break. Could be I'm going to go for a walk or go to hop on the Peloton, cuddle with my dog, make out with my husband. That there are lots of different pleasurable things. Take a bubble bath, schedule a massage, get my nails done. I need to tap into pleasure. It can be a quick thing, right? A quick little dance break. Or it could be something more, it could be, I need a whole spa day. But if I'm banging my head against the wall, pleasure, right? Pleasure is the key. Stop and tap into pleasure. If you can't do that, you can't stop what you're doing, or you have to do it and it's not pleasurable, then think about how can you add pleasure to what you're doing. Right? So if you have to do this thing, but it's not pleasurable, how can you add pleasure? So I'll give you an example. If I have to do something and it's something that is not the funnest. Well, first of all, I try to avoid doing things like that. I delegate as much as possible. I try to the best extent I can to do things that are in my zone of genius and let other people do things that are in their zones of genius. And if something feels super unpleasurable, it is not my zone of genius. And I try to avoid that. So that's the first thing. Just try to not have to do things that are super unpleasurable. But if you do, then how can you add pleasure, right? So I might have like different costumes, right? So I might need to add a boa to the situation. I might need to, or my, put on a silly costume, put on a little flower. I might have to get flowered up, put on a boa, or sometimes I have a tiara that I'll put on, right? And oh my gosh, now it's so much more fun and pleasurable. Anything I do dressed like this is better. It could be that that I put on my favorite music, I start to dance. I think who is fun that I could bring along with me. So I didn't love driving distances, but sometimes I have to commute. I have to go speak, which I do love to speak, but I might have to go. It's LA, it's commuting, traffic. But if I was listening to a really fun audiobook or podcast, time just goes and it's fun. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already here, right? So how do you add pleasure to something that's not pleasurable? You have to do it. So that's the pleasure. We want to take pleasure breaks. We want to have daily doses of pleasure in our life. We want to make things pleasurable. If things aren't pleasurable, then we will add pleasure, and we only want to be doing something unpleasurable, if it leads to a pleasurable result, right? So there might be certain you may not love to do due diligence. Not that fun, right? But the pleasurable result is the property that you're going to have at the end of this. So you do the unpleasurable for the pleasurable result. Now, I will, like I say, I don't love commuting, but I will commute to speak because I love to speak. Pleasurable result. I will commute to go hang out with a friend that I love. Pleasurable result. I will not go commute to hang out with somebody that sucks my energy. Unpleasurable thing for unpleasurable result. We cut those out. Cut them out. Unpleasurable activity to unpleasurable result, out. That is not the goddess way. All right. So pleasure is a huge part of our goddess secret sauce. Add pleasure as much as possible. 2, intuition. So as women, so they talk about women's intuition. It is a real thing. Everybody has intuition. Everybody, men, women, we all have access to this greater knowing. That's not logical. That's just this knowing response. But we as women have these connections in our brain that connect the right and left hemispheres of our brain. Men don't have those same connections. The right hemisphere of our brain is more intuitive. And we have this, I believe these connections actually make it so women's intuition is stronger. But in our masculine paradigm, we're often taught to ignore our intuition because it's not logical. And intuition is almost by definition not logical. It's not going to make sense. It's going to be something that there are 4 different ways in which you can receive intuition. They call it the 4 clairs. So one would be clairvoyant, and you're actually seeing something. Clairaudient, where you're hearing something. Claircognizant, where you just have a knowing about something. Or clairsentient, where you have a feeling in your body about something. And I want you to think about a time in your life where you received an intuitive hit. How did you receive it? Did you receive it through clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance, or some combination of those? That might be I received different guidance through all of those, but my clairsentience and claircognizance are strongest. I went on a blind date with somebody, and I walked in and I just knew that was a person. I just knew. turned out to be my husband now. I saw him and I just knew it was him. And then my logical ego, my ego was like, no, you can't know. Then the ego comes in afterwards. The voice of fear will come in, and it will try to often talk you out of that intuitive hit. One of the ways you know what's your intuition is because it's the most immediate response. It's just that first initial response. That's the intuition. And your ego fear voice will come in after, and you can tell that it's the ego fear because it will try to logic you out of that initial knowing, initial intuitive guidance. And it's very good at arguing, right, why you should ignore it. That's its job. It's just tailor-made to know exactly how to get you out of thinking that your intuition is correct. So of course that voice at that date said, no, you can't know that. You just met this person, right? Or I had walked into this job and it just felt wrong, right? But my ego voice, fear voice said, no, this particular law firm it's known to be such a great place to work, and it was this and it was that, and it convinced me, and I ignored my intuitive guidance. I want you to think about a time when you got an intuitive hit and you ignored it. How'd that work out for you? That law firm that I got a sense was not right. I ended up literally in a hospital with a ruptured appendix, feeling grateful that I didn't have to go to work. Almost died, but when the doctor told me that my appendix had ruptured, I'd be in the hospital for several days, and then I'd have 30 days afterwards at home to recover. My first thought was, oh, thank God I don't have to go to work for at least 30 days. And my next thought was, ooh, that's bad. That's not normal. But that was because I ignored my intuition. I'd ignored that. That was quite a while later. But the whole time I was there, it was always, I don't belong here. This is not good for me. Intuition. So part of this goddess secret sauce is to really tap into that intuition and know how it speaks to you, right? Is it clairvoyance? Is it clairaudience? Is it clairsentience? Is it claircognizance? Well, how does it speak to you? And then trusting it and following that guidance, even when it's not logical, because in our masculine paradigm, it has to be logical, it has to make sense, and our intuition will often not make sense. It'll just say, that's not it, or that is it, and you just have to trust it and go with that. So that's the intuition. The third part of the goddess secret sauce has to do with our mindset, our beliefs, our, and having and harnessing and having beliefs that will support what we're trying to do. Last week, I talked a lot about how you can shift that mindset to allow in more wealth and abundance, because we have to do that. As I was saying at the beginning of this episode, there's a lot of fear that comes up for us women when we're in this game. And so in order to deal with that fear, one, you need to excavate the fear, figure out what exactly is that, and then be able to rewire and have a mindset and a belief that will invite in that grace and that ease and that flow. Because we tend to be wired to fear initially, we're going to want to really work on having that mindset that will work with us, that will allow us to maneuver and move more easily in this world. Okay, so that's the third part, mindset. Last but not least is sisterhood. We are wired for sisterhood. There is a hormone, oxytocin. It's a feel-good hormone. It's a bonding hormone. When that is released in our brain, that is our brain and body telling us, ooh, this is good for you. Have more of this. So we are flooded with oxytocin when we're making love, orgasm, which is good for us, good for the species, right? We need to feel good so that our species will continue. If we get that oxytocin when we're breastfeeding, again, propagates the species, and we get that oxytocin when we are around groups of other women. Just being around other women gives us that oxytocin. I talked about the tend and befriend, the stress response for women. That's part of it. The oxytocin, it helps relieve our stress being around other women. There have been studies that show that when women are in groups of women, they learn better than when they are in co-ed groups. There's a lot that supports us when we are in supportive groups of women. Now, not all groups are supportive, right? Sometimes if a woman is showing up from this masculine paradigm, it might come in and be competitive with other women. So some women with these limiting beliefs feel there's only room for one of us at the table. And so I'm here, that bitch gotta go. And that is not what we're talking about, right? That's not part of our culture at Real Estate Investor Goddesses is we only want women that are supportive of other women. That's like a non-judgmental, non-catty, non-competitive, co-elevation culture, because we rise together. When one of us succeeds, it inspires and it supports all of us to succeed. We know that there's more than enough for everyone. There's more than enough room at the table. And in fact, not only is there room at the table, we want, when a seat opens up for us at the table, we're going to go, come on, sis, come here. I'm going to scooch over. There's room for you right here. We want to invite in the others to be there. It supports all of us. And when there are more women at the table, I know that when women have more abundance and they're more financially empowered, there are a lot of studies that show that you give women more money, they will reinvest that money into their kids, to their families, into their neighborhoods, into their communities. They transform their families, their communities, the world. I focus on helping women invest in real estate because for me, that is my shortcut to transforming the world. Because I know if I empower a woman, she's going to empower everybody around her. That's how women are wired. That isn't one of the differences. Men can, and not that there aren't men that are wired to help and they want to help. But one of the things that they've shown is when they've looked at men and women and who are more, and they're giving, they give money to men versus women. Men, especially in third world countries, the women will use it to educate their kids, to hire their neighbors. They really transform. Men tend to use it for cigarettes, alcohol, and prostitutes. they will often use it to, or they'll, they can, it's good enough to just have more. For men, they can, it's enough incentive to keep having more. More is more. They can just have money for more. Women, once they hit a certain level of abundance, they tend to give a lot of that money away. They tend to reinvest it in others. That's just how, 90% of women will do that. Once we hit a certain level, we are not motivated by having more. We are motivated by being able to give more. We are motivated by being able to impact more. We're motivated by being able to contribute more. We're not motivated by just having more. And in fact, it's demotivating for a lot of women. If it's only about just having more, we will stop. So for us, we need to really be really clued into how having more can help everyone. And that's why I focus a lot on that too, because I know that we need that to stay motivated, to stay in the game. Because when we have more, we can give more, we can do more, and we do. So those are the parts of the goddess secret sauce: pleasure, intuition, mindset, and sisterhood. So I invite you ladies who are watching this to think about, how can I incorporate this into my life more? And that's not just for investing. It really is for life. How can I add in more pleasure? How can I tune in more to my intuition? How can I make sure that my mindset is in alignment with my bigger goal, my bigger vision? And how do I tap into the sisterhood? How do I create and invite in sisterhood to help me have better results? For those of you who want to do that in real estate investing, I do invite you to join us in our apply to be part of our Millionaire Real Estate Investor Goddess program. I will put a link for a strategy session in the chat. Give me a second while I do that. And so I have a tinyurl.com and tinyurl.com/reig strategy session, REIG strategy session, which I'll put in the chat. So if this turns you on, you want to explore more, please, I invite you to do that. And before we go, we will end with a trinity, and I would love for you to share your trinities in the chat. And a trinity is a brag or celebration, a gratitude, and a desire. So what do I brag? I brag that I focus every single day, and in my in our morning goddess accountability pods every day, it's like, this is what I'm doing for my real estate, and this is what I'm doing for pleasure. So I brag my daily dose of pleasure, and today's daily dose of pleasure, I am going to hop in the pool. I'm going to play around with a new wave ski that I'm seeing if I want to buy, and it's like a wave ski is like a paddleboard meets it's like a kayak. Sorry, kayak meets a surfboard, and it's really fun. So I brag my pleasure and my wave ski, and I am grateful for the incredible sisterhood that surrounds me, and just incredible women, the goddesses that are part of this program, plus just this incredible sisterhood of women who I know that are in this real estate world, and incredible sisterhood of friends that I've had for a long time. I was just talking recently to one of my friends from college, Susan, and we're talking, and I realized that we have been friends for a little bit of time, at least 4 years since I graduated. We've been friends for a while. College was while ago for me, and I'm really, really grateful for the incredible women that I have in my life, and I desire lots of pleasure for each of you, and I desire that you ladies are able to really tap into your feminine and have a lot of ease, grace, and flow in all you do. So that's my trinity for today. I thank you for getting real with me, and I will see you next time. In the meantime, get real and stay real. Mwah. Bye.